Hi friends, how are we all doing? It's been a minute. I'm, as always, super busy. I feel like a broken record. I say that in every single video, but now it really is worse than ever. I have way too much to do. I actually need to hire a couple people to support my projects. I'll give more details at the end of the video about exactly who I need, but I just want to sort of flag it at the top here in case you might be exactly who I'm looking for, and maybe you're interested in working together. Anyway, today we are back with another floor plan redesign, a particularly satisfying one, I must say. We are in the American South in a lovely private wooded lot, which is owned by a couple that is very excited about building their dream home here. They're working with an architect, but they actually started their design process with a sort of base template floor plan that they liked, and they're customizing it a bit to fit their personal needs. And because of that, there are sort of a lot of leftover features that are no longer supporting the design, but actually sort of holding it back in a way. So I want to sort of break this down zone by zone, starting with the living room here. First off, I want to point out how much area of this plan is actually being sacrificed purely to circulation. We don't have a ton of literal confined hallways necessarily, but still this plan has a lot of path, not room, right? And it's specifically making our living room very teeny tiny. The sofa in this plan is only 5'6", like just under 170 centimeters for my non-Americans. And the reason for that is just so that it won't block this path of travel, right? It was obvious to me that this entrance in the primary suite was not original to the plan. So the first thing I asked them on our call was why they wanted to move the primary bedroom entrance. And as I imagined, it was because they didn't like feeling that there was a direct connection between the front entrance and their bedroom, which I completely understand. I think that makes a lot of sense, but I think there are other ways to sort of mitigate that, which we'll talk about. What I really care about achieving here is a living room that has at least one corner, while of course maintaining its openness and its visual connection to the windows at the front and back of the house. Any room that we want to feel comfortable, like a living room or a bedroom, it won't feel right if we have a path of travel in all four corners. It's just way too much energy cutting through the space. I like to think of these spaces as sort of dead ends, like cul-de-sacs at the end of a road, where you don't necessarily move through them, but rather they're a destination at the end of a path. So first things first, we're just going to close up that entrance to the primary suite, which allows us to have a much more comfortable sized living room and a nice edge corner to achieve some coziness. Also behind the sofa was this little built-in that was labeled as a sort of counter and open shelves, like a little bar of sorts, I guess. And in this size room, I just don't love the idea of having any sort of usable space behind the sofa. I don't think we need people walking back there, so let's close that up as well. And here between the living room and hallway, they were imagining a sort of cased opening threshold, which I think is a really nice way of thinking, like separating the hallway and the living room. But instead, I actually prefer the idea of just having like a beam or some sort of change in the ceiling height above, because that allows us to have a large rug end here at the implied boundary of the living room. Does that make sense? Instead of having a sort of double margin of hallway and then the space between that cased opening and the rug, we can just let the hallway itself be the margin. It just helps the living room be that much more full. And then we can have some nice millwork flank the fireplace here, which can further enforce that edge with the rug. Rather than having an actual wall jutting out like that, we're going to imply that edge with some design elements. And the other thing that was really, really bothering me here once I realized it is that these front three windows over the stairs to the lower level are not centered on these back windows. They're like 1 foot off from being centered because they're centered on the staircase instead. These back windows can't really be touched or have their dimension changed because of the roof line. It would really complicate things, but we do have some flexibility with these windows in the front. Now, it was really important to these clients to have a 4-foot wide staircase, which I totally understand. I think that's super nice, but I crunched the numbers and I understood that if we move just one step to the top of the stairs here, and we make them 3'11" instead of 4 feet, then we can perfectly center these 3 windows, both on the staircase and those windows at the back of the living room. And with that, I would say that our middle segment of this house is working quite well. And you'll notice that we've actually created a kind of unique opportunity behind the living room here, which I want to dive into, of course, but first I want to take a quick second to tell you guys about the sponsor of today's video, Rayon Design. As you guys know, Rayon is the drafting software that I use for all of my interior design projects, and it's also what I use to draw up all the plans we're looking at today. Something I really love about Rayon is how easy it is to bring your drawings to life, not just technically, but visually. Beyond just drafting your plans, you can layer in textures and materials directly from their built-in library. Things like wood finishes, tile. It can instantly bring your drawings to life and just better communicate a design intent. And if you want something specific, you can also import your own materials. So say you have a tile floor you're sourcing, for example, or literally any reference image, you can just drop it in and use it directly in your plan. It's super helpful for when you're trying to make your ideas tangible for client presentations. And this all kind of ties into something else that Rayon is really great for, which is mood boarding. All in the same workspace, you can just copy paste, crop and arrange images directly on the canvas. There's no jumping between different programs. It's all super quick and intuitive. And with their built-in AI tools, you can edit images directly inside Rayon. Things like removing the background of an image, which is so handy, or even changing materials like make this sofa white linen, for example. This can seriously be so helpful when you're trying to either quickly test different ideas or present different options. Rayon really just makes the whole design process feel way more creative and fluid than a typical CAD platform. So if you want to streamline your workflow and have everything from drawings to mood boards to presentations all in one place, I really recommend checking out Rayon. You can sign up for free today by using my link down in the description. And thank you again to Rayon for sponsoring today's video. All right, now let's get back to our plan. So back to the space behind the living room here. By removing that hallway and that sort of built-in feature, we unlocked a huge amount of wasted space. There's actually space here for a small room, and this exterior wall has a super nice view behind it. Really, there's nice views in all directions on this site. It's super private and green. So this wasn't necessarily on their wish list, but I proposed the idea of creating a small sort of office here, just a space that's not the bedroom where you can go and close the door, get some work done or whatever. I think it's super valuable in a relatively open plan like this. And even with these pretty small dimensions, a nice big window there can really make this a great space to be in. And along with that, I want to sort of rework this powder room and new little hallway a bit. First of all, the entrance to the powder room should be off of this hallway. I think it feels a lot nicer and more private, not directly off the front foyer. And flipping the wall that our plumbing is on is even better, removing any of those toilet sightlines that we hate. Also mirroring the location of this hallway so that it's not directly in line with the front door will feel a lot better, I think. And instead, opposite the front door, we can have a nice piece of art that's nicely lit, something that sort of stops the flow and frames in the foyer area. Along with that, you'll notice that I got rid of the entry closet that was here previously, and that's because I want to locate it here next to the door. Then, just like we did with the living room, we can have an area rug really define the entry area. It won't feel like the entrance is sort of straddling that hallway across the primary suite door. This way, when you welcome someone into your home and you hang their coat or whatever, you're not crossing into the home. It's more contained in this area here. Also, just a small note to go along with this whole idea. In order to communicate some hierarchy between this primary circulation path and this new hallway, I would have a cased opening here. That will ensure that this hallway feels like a secondary space, and it makes this whole length of the hallway feel like one wall, which is really important for framing the foyer. Okay, now moving on to the primary suite. Oh, there's some sirens. I don't know if you can hear that. Wait. Okay, now moving on to the primary suite. There's a lot to talk about now. First of all, I'm really glad that we don't have the entrance to the bedroom at the foot of the bed anymore, but I do think we can make it feel more private with a small entry vestibule here between the bedroom and bathroom. With just the right dimensions and the door swinging in this direction, I believe we can entirely eliminate any potential sightlines between the bed and the entry area, which is crucial. I also just think there's something psychologically nice about moving through a transition space before you get to your bedroom. I think just a very blunt door swing is not very ideal. And in the primary bathroom, first of all, it's not comfortable or really even possible to get into this water closet as they have it drawn. I don't think this would even pass permitting. It was actually so sweet. This couple was so excited about this build and creating their dream home that they had already purchased a lot of the plumbing fixtures, including this freestanding tub. They said that it's currently living in the garage in the home they live in now, which I think is so sweet. It really just shows how much they care about this plan. So we can play around with a lot of these dimensions, obviously. It is a new build, but this tub was locked in. In general, I would say that I don't really love the idea of a door to a water closet opening up onto a spa-like space like this with a freestanding tub centered under a window. And with the new vestibule dimensions, we gained a little bit of room here. So I'm going to suggest that we swap toilet and shower. Then we can have a nice, spacious, beautiful shower with a bench here. Something that feels like a continuation of the tub area, either with a curtain or a glass door. And then we can tuck the door to the water closet around the corner here. And that leads us to talk about the closet, which is one of the first things I noticed when I looked at this plan. It's definitely a problem area that needs to be resolved. Basically, this exterior corner here is a leftover from the original plan that they started with, that sort of template plan that I mentioned. Originally, the bathtub was planned to be centered in this bump out here. They moved it because they didn't love the idea of a bathtub at the front of the home facing the street, which is of course super understandable. The front of the home facing the street isn't exactly the most relaxing place to be. But the thing is, this feature really informed the exterior elevation. This bump out was planned to be clad in stone, and it had this unique roofline coming out. It's all very nice and charming, but you guys know my philosophy around architecture and interiors. I think features like this on the outside of a building are best used when they're actually relating to an interior function. Like when the bathtub was located here, for example, I think that would make a lot of sense, both from the interior and exterior. But the fact that in the current plan, this is all just closet, that bump out isn't relating to anything at all in the interior, it's completely useless and random now, right? It's just a leftover feature. So I feel very strongly that we should get rid of it. And then on that front elevation, we can actually just pull this stone cladding all the way over along the covered porch. Doing this will feel so much more like a high-end custom home and not a sort of standard suburban builder grade house that has faux architectural interest just slapped on the front of it. But anyway, I digress. You guys can go watch my video on American suburbs if you want to sort of unpack that topic more. But in the closet, when we get rid of that pesky little corner, it allows us to have a way cleaner, linear layout with counter height drawers under this beautiful window centered in the space. It will really just be lovely, I think. And with that, I think we've sorted the primary suite pretty well, but we have one more area to tackle, which I think really needs it, and that is the kitchen and eat-in dining area. Now, first of all, let me just say that This couple was very confident that they didn't want any sort of traditional large formal dining area, which I think is really telling about how they want this home to feel and function. So I loved that for them. I think a dining space in a kitchen is super comfortable and casual, and it works for a lot of people. That being said, I do think that the proportions here obviously need to be reworked for a better flow and function. So I want to just clear this space out for a second. Now, again, thinking about the push and pull of this front elevation actually reflecting what's happening with the interior, my initial instinct was to propose moving this round dining table to be centered under this front window, which is something that they said they hadn't considered before, but really liked when I suggested it, which is great because what this does is it frees up this much cleaner geometry over here to plan our kitchen in. So the table can go here with a nice long built-in bench along this wall. I love this because it adds a very cozy, casual edge to the dining area. And when they do occasionally host bigger groups every once in a while, they can extend this table and use the length of this bench for extra seating, which is awesome. Now, you guys know that I like a linear kitchen. So these clients felt pretty strong about having both the stove and the sink up against a wall. The stove because they wanted a nice hood over it, and the sink to be in front of a window. Now, I really love that they planned this little coffee bar on the back of this fireplace mass here. I think it would be great to center a large window and sink right across from that, along with bar stools and an island, so this can become the clear sort of center of the kitchen. And I also really like the idea that the end of this main hallway is punctuated by some nice cabinetry in the island, not just the back of a stool. I think that feels a lot more comfortable. And then beyond that piece of the island, we can have a really nice range with a beautiful hood, maybe a cool tile backsplash, something that feels like a very proper end to this sort of datum line. Then of course we need the fridge to be up against a wall. So I think an integrated fridge can similarly be a nice sort of cap at the end of this opening to the living room. Now, a lot of you might be thinking about the kitchen work triangle, which is all about equally spacing the sink, cooktop, and fridge. And that's a great thing to achieve, and it works really well in a lot of kitchens. But something that's also very important to consider is this fourth element of your workspace, which I find a lot of times gets sort of pushed aside and sacrificed in order to achieve a nice kitchen work triangle. And that is your open prep space, the length of countertop where you can prep all your food, chop your veggies, plate your things, the actual like empty surface, right? Making sure that all of these elements, the sink, cooktop, and fridge, have close proximity to that workspace is extremely important. And it works quite well in linear kitchens like this that have this general layout with an empty island. For example, this client actually asked if maybe it would be better to locate the fridge where the coffee bar is now. And I don't think that would be a good idea because this is just about 7 feet from the back of this island to that coffee bar, which is a very long distance to walk when you're just unloading things from the fridge. So all of that is to say, don't lose sight of how far these elements are from just empty counter space. I believe it's much more important for the function of a kitchen than that literal triangle. And then we have quite a long arm of counter reaching down toward the dining end of this space, which is super nice, but in order to sort of imply an edge to our seating area in a really subtle way, I think it could be great to incorporate a sort of hutch or another nice tall storage element at the end of the counter here. That way it will feel like the kitchen zone really ends right here. Okay guys, I think those are all of my thoughts on this one. Let's do a little before and after look here. Right after this consultation, I asked these clients permission to talk about their floor plan because I was really excited to share some of these lessons with you guys, specifically how much more comfortable a room like this living room can be when it doesn't have all of these active edges and circulation paths cutting through it. Okay, let me know what you guys think about this one down in the comments. And if any of you out there have a project right now, whether it's a new build or a renovation, and you want to talk it through in a design consultation, you can email me for more details about that at noahdaniel.studio.com. And yeah, I've got to get back to my very busy life. I'm working through the weekend over here in Copenhagen, and I'm supposed to post this video tomorrow. Let's see if that happens. Oh, speaking of which, I want to tell you guys about the roles that I'm hiring for. I desperately need 2 part-time skilled people to support all of my projects. These would be remote freelance positions, so wherever you are in the world, it could work out. The first position is a design coordinator, so that's somebody to help me with all of my design projects, things like drafting, detailing, gathering reference photos, 3D visualizations, really just supporting the entire design workflow of my projects. So if you studied interior design or architecture or a similar field, and or you have studio experience and you'd like to work with me, then please send your CV along with a portfolio or some sort of visual reference like a Pinterest or Instagram to studio@noahdaniel.studio.com. I'm really ideally looking for someone who not only has the technical skills, but really understands my design values and has an eye for well-designed spaces. And in addition to that, I am in serious need of a media and content coordinator. So that would mean helping me plan and organize all of my content, helping me with editing my videos, long form and short form. Ideally, this is somebody that's very interested in interiors, architecture, and design. They understand design concepts, and they are a very strong writer that can clearly communicate those concepts. If that sounds like it could be you, then please also send me your CV to studio@noahdaniel.studio.com, along with some work examples if you can. Yes, I really hope you guys are out there because I need help fast. I am way too busy. I'm just one boy with one brain, 2 hands, and 24 hours in a day, and I can't do it all. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys, and yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye. Where's Maple? Maple! I think Maple has just been sleeping under the coffee table this entire time. Maple, boy! She's so tired for no reason. Boy! Come say goodbye to all the people. Yes. Now say goodbye. Say bye. Okay, I will see you guys soon. My next video should be up in 2 weeks.